Welcome to Stay Paid, your number one sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals, retain more clients, and build the life of freedom you're working towards. But that can only happen if you take action today. My name is Josh Dyke, Chief Marketing Officer at Reminder Media, joined by Luke Acree, President of Reminder Media, and team lead and founder of Acree Brothers Real Estate team, Stephen Acree. Welcome, everybody. Returning
it's great
to the
to be
podcast.
Here. It's great.
It's still the whole like non-studio feel, like looking at you guys, all of you over.
It's more
Zoom.
relaxed, you know.
It is. I feel like I almost did drop
We don't
the
have the
intro,
studio
but,
anymore.
we got doorbells ringing out here in the new office. But our guest today, returning from a year ago, Tim Bushnell, also on the Acree Brothers Realty team, the number one producer in 2024 and 2025, top 1% in the Lynchburg MLS last year, over 200 sides of business closed since starting in May of 2023. Tim, welcome back to Stay Paid.
Thanks for having me back.
Dude, it's awesome to have you. Tim is a killer. I get to talk to Tim every week. Wanted to have you back on the show. We're writing a book on teams in the industry. So I'm putting this together with shout out to BAM. So Byron and Eric and them, and then Alan Dalton. We're all kind of doing a bunch of, call it research, really interviews and stuff like that, interviewing a ton of top teams. But I thought it'd be amazing to get a perspective from someone who's on a team, because one of the big pain points of teams is top producers leave. And you haven't left us yet, knock on wood. Don't leave Tim. No. But Tim hasn't left us. But I think it would be cool to get your take on why you stay on a team, what you see the advantages are. And then obviously we can talk downsides too. Of that would be awesome. But if before we jump into that, can you tell people kind of where you're at? I know we're recording this in May. So what does your production look like this year? How's the year been going for you?
Yeah. So I'm averaging a little over 7 deals a month right now. I did 7 in January, 7 in February, 8 in March, and 9 in April. And by tomorrow morning, we'll have 6 pending for this month.
Beautiful.
So it's about in total, it's about 7 million in volume, maybe 7.5 volume. Average is like 250 for me in this area. And on pace to do just under 100. The goal is 120 this year. So pushing, Stephen and I, and Luke, you and I have been talking about how we can push up the volume. So if we can't hit 120, we can still hit the $30 million volume goal. So having to push pretty hard to hit that. I think I've got to be closer to 10 million than 7 million right now if I'm going to hit 30 million. So I looked at my numbers this morning, and that's never fun when you're behind.
Well, maybe we'll have to even dive into that maybe a little bit later in the show, because I think you and I have had some really good discussions about not only mindset, but activity around getting you to where your goal's at. And I know a lot of people are feeling that. Can you talk a little bit about why you have stayed on the team, why you joined the team in the first place?
Yeah, so the team was a pretty easy decision for me because I know myself pretty well. And I'm a really hard worker. And I also am not a big self-starter or visionary or anything like that. I need accountability. And I need community. And so the team, I would want to be with other people, if not by myself. And so it was natural for me to gravitate towards the team. And then I chose the Acree Brothers for a number of reasons, but the logical sort of data-driven reasons were just the massive amount of leads they had access to. They had so many people, homeowners and potential buyers already there for me to call. I'm still generating business and money from people I called in May of 2023 because of the team. Yeah. So it's just access to leads is a big thing. And then, if I think about newer agents on our team, I'm feeding agents. It's hard for me to follow up with every lead I get on a listing. And so I can feed it to other agents on our team, and then I get a cut of whatever commission they make. So there's opportunity for me to generate passive money. So I think a lot of it is for me, when I read the Millionaire Agent, real estate agent, and I looked at Steven's model, I was like, all right, he's a millionaire agent. The model's there. Can I be a millionaire agent in this model? And so Steven and Cody and I talked a lot about that, and it's clear that I can be, and because the team's growing so fast. So that's the reason I stay, is the team, because I know I could generate the money I want to make in the team with less work, and I can get there faster. It just makes sense for me to stay.
Why do you think, and maybe even you can speak to yourself, because I've always been curious about this, is why do you think agents leave teams? What's from your experience? Because you've seen agents leave, agents have left Acree Brothers. You've probably had the thoughts of leaving at times. Everybody does. Lie to me, though, if it's true. Lie to me and tell me we're beautiful. Why do you think agents leave the team? Why have you been have those thoughts if you have?
Yeah. So every time in the beginning, every time I would get like the $9,000 commission split divide up from there, and you'd see 50% of it go to the team, 50% of it come to you, and a $9,000 check would become a $4,500 check. Anytime that happened, you go, what could I do with that extra $4,500? And the reason people leave is because of that. I think that's the number one reason, is money.
Yep.
And but Leah and I would run a business similar to Steven's. Like, I want to be a millionaire agent. So I'd be running the same model as Steven. And I look at the P&L, and it's like, I would be at 20 or 25% profit on these checks if I was the one running the team, because I'd have to pay out splits and stuff. And I'm at a 45% margin by being on the team. So it's clear to me that for the scale I want to go, I need to be on a team, because I want to generate tons of business. I want to be a top agent. And to do that, you have to have support. You can't do it by yourself in any market, because you have to do so much volume. And if you're going to deliver great service, you have to have a great team. So for me, it's like, I would never want to leave this team, because they've already have all the right people, all the best people. I think we have the best transaction coordinators, one of the best listing coordinators, best sales team leader, sales director. We got a great team leader in Steven. We got great operations with Cody. So we just have a really good team. And it wasn't that way when I started, but I could see with Steven and Cody that it would be, and it happened faster than I thought it would, which is awesome.
That is an interesting point, though, because I do see that it's like, it actually matters what your end in mind is, like your definition of success in the life you want. Because I could see scenarios. We just lost a member from the team that we're all close with, right? And Noah, but I actually told Noah that I could see the scenario where being off the team would be better for him because of the lifestyle that he wants and the amount of production and the amounts of money he wants to make. So I think that's a really good golden nugget for the audience listening, that a lot of it also is defined by, like, what's your income goal? Like, how much money do you want to make? And in our market, at least in the Lynchburg market, you have to do 100 transactions to hit your income goal, really 120. Well, to get 120 transactions, you can't do that without, well, I shouldn't say can't, but it's very difficult to do that without a transaction coordinator or some help. And so based upon your income goal, you realize, I have to have a team. And if I do the math of building out a team, let alone the time, energy, pain, finding the right people, the actual just pure money, yeah, it's way better for me to stay here. Where in maybe a Noah's case, and we'll have to maybe get Noah on the show and pick his brain, he doesn't want to sell 120 homes a year, right? Maybe he wants to sell 20 to 25 homes a year. And in his case, he doesn't need to hire the TC or the whatever. And so it could make sense, or does make sense, for him to not be on a team if he can generate the lead flow himself. In essence, what do you think about that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Actually, I was just talking to, since we're all Noah's cousins, all our families know Noah. So I was just talking about that with Lindy and Levi. And I was like, yeah, I think this is a great decision for Noah based on what he wants to do. It makes sense. I loved having him on the team. And I'll still, we're still going to see him all the time. But yeah, that was, and I say that to agents all the time. There's a couple of agents who are out there who are on other teams that I see. And this is what I would, if I was an agent, listen to this podcast and I was trying to decide, should I stay on my team or go out on my own? The question you should ask yourself is, should I go to a team that'll let me go further? Because a lot of agents, the leader isn't growing the team. And so you have to be in an environment just like Reminder Media, just like you guys, Luke and Josh, you guys have to be in an environment where your people can grow there. Like it's cool for me to see you guys as the president and the chief marketing when Josh, you started with Steve when it was in a garage, and Luke, you were in the engine, you were an intern when I first started at Reminder Media. So it's like you got to be in a company that can grow so that people can grow. And if you want to keep talent, you have to be growing. So if team leaders are listening, you've got to be the one to create a growth environment that a top producer agent who doesn't really want to be a team leader, but does have big income goals or big life goals can grow and hit those goals there. And that's what, you guys have done for me at the
That's
Acree
so well
Brothers.
said. Yeah, so well said. And when you think about like a team that runs really well for the actual agents on the team, right? There's this cadence of operations and accountability that has to be put in place. And one of the questions, just so for the audience, so you guys have context, I've been interviewing dozens of top teams all across the nation and every different brand and talking to these team leaders and stuff like that. And one of the chapters in the book is all about accountability. Like, how do you drive development and accountability? I'm curious for you, like, where do you see, like, what's a good meeting? What's a good cadence of accountability for you that in your mind has created a great culture for agents?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's that there's a standard for the team. So not anybody can be on the team. When I first started, the standard, I think, was like 12 deals a year. And it was just a little too easy for people to hit. And so there was a huge shift when we changed it to 24 deals a year, right? That's not going to ever, that standard is never going to be my standard, right? Because unless I can start selling a couple $1 million houses on average. But that 24 deals, that brings people onto our team that they got to push out 2 deals a month now. And so it creates really just hardworking, an environment of hardworking people who are pushing, who want to take that, maybe this isn't the best lead in the world, but it'll get me that unit I need so I can get to 24. And then that deal leads to, multiple other deals. So it creates this environment of hunger. Have you guys ever read the book Go Getter?
No.
It's good. Well, that's what I think the standards does for the team is it brings on these go-getters, and the book's about a company that sells lumber, and it's about a guy. They give him a terrible territory. He starts to kill it in that territory, and they're going to give him the best territory, but they have him do basically like a test to see if he'll figure out how to do it, like achieve what's almost unachievable, for no real reason at all. But the book is really great. It was a book I read actually while I was at Reminder Media. So it's a great book. But that mentality is, I think, the reason standards are so important, because if your standards are too low, then people say, okay, I can do that, no problem. And then they won't push themselves when it's hard, or when, like, I'm at the beach right now. I don't want to get on a call at 6:30 tonight to go over multiple offers with a client, but I want to get to 10 deals this month. And to get to 10 deals this month, I need to get this one wrapped up. I didn't want to coordinate somebody going out and filming one of my clients. For one of my clients, I didn't want to set up a showing for an off-market property. I'm at the beach, but I want to get 10 deals a month. So I'm going to do those things. And I think that's what the standards does. It forces people to push themselves and then realize what they can do. And then through realizing what they can do, the standard becomes a norm, and when the norm is hard work and what everybody else sees as great, you will become incredible, because that's the norm on the team. And so if somebody wants to be like me, wants to be the number one on the team, you got to be way above the norm, which means you're crushing it. And then your team can really dominate. And that's why standards and accountability is so important, because it causes people to push themselves beyond the limits of what they believe are reality. And it's attracting some really hardworking men and women to our team. And we're very quickly, I'm watching the people who can't do it or won't do it, or it's not the right fit for them, leave, and the ones that can rise up into top 50, top 100. I think our team will very quickly be only top 50 agents in Lynchburg.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well
Talking about standards, like, what have you had to do differently this past year? Like, we talked to you a year ago. and kind of how you were still building your business, still kind of in your first year and a half. What's changed over the last 12 months that you've had to, because that's one of the hardest things in business. It's like you want to keep doing the things that worked before, but you know, you have to continue to evolve and do more. What's changed for you over the last year to continue hitting those standards, hitting those goals that you're going for?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift was I had to let go. And it's funny you ask that question because Steve and I just talked about this right before I left for the beach. I have to let go of a lot of things. So I've had to delegate way more. Um, and that was the shift. So I was averaging, I think, a little over five last year. I did 92 last year, but my average was fluctuated. I had a couple of big months and I fluctuated. And the shift from hitting a consistent number of sales and getting more, winning more listings. Like I have 14 active listings right now, and I'm the most I carried before that was 4 or 5. And the shift was that when they brought on the listing coordinator and a second TC, I was pushing the work that I didn't have to do, the busy work, to them, and I just had to trust that they would do it. And now Elena, the biggest shift has been Elena calls all of my sellers. I used to call all of my sellers on Mondays. That's what I did on Mondays. I didn't do any prospecting. I didn't do anything else. I just called all my sellers and let them know how it was going. And now Elena does that for me. And I have that time back to prospect, negotiate deals, go on appointments. So that was the biggest mindset shift, is having to delegate that workout.
And that's so hard, Luke. I don't know anybody watching that isn't experienced in the real estate world, but the hardest thing when you're like going on vacations or in your workday is not the delegating, it's trusting the person on the other side. And then when you have to have that trust between two people, like your director of ops, director of sales, and then the listing coordinator, it's like that is actually what allows you to release it. Because if you're not fully releasing it, the mind share still stops you from doing the work. Would you agree with that, Tim? Where it's just
Yeah.
if you have your mind on I'm not serving my client because you handed it off, but you're not positive if it's going to be good service, it's like that still stops you from the lead generation and getting more deals. So just being able to release it and trust actually causes so much momentum in deal flow. Tim, you want to talk about like we're meeting every week, but you want to talk about your biggest pain point that you keep running into, and we can talk about like I think it's just relevant for so many agents that are listening. But your
Yeah.
biggest rock that you need to keep
Yeah.
hammering, will always probably have to keep hammering.
Yeah. And it's, I think you're right. I hope you're wrong and I'm the only one dealing with this, but my experience has been, it's the hardest part is keeping up with your past clients. And that has been I just, there's always something else I can do that seems urgent and more important than calling or texting my clients. So we have simplified it. And Luke and I haven't had our coaching yet. So I'll just fill you in here, Luke. I did text 25 of my past clients last week. I did it after 3 weeks of not doing it.
Yeah.
We went from calling to texting because I just couldn't get the calls in. It's tough, but you have to do something to get engaged with them, to reconnect. And it was really good. We got a lunch set up with one of the guys who's done 2 deals with us just in the past 12 months. And I reconnected with someone who is thinking about listing their house. So it's like, okay, you have to do it. There's going to be a lot of people that nothing is going on, but you never know when those real estate moments are going to pop up. And if you're not in the presence of opportunity, then another agent like us who's a go-getter and calling through is going to get them. My sphere is getting called by our ISAs. So I know other ISAs are calling.
How often do people move? Like what's the average?
I think it's 11 years right now nationally, but seven to 11.
So if you like think about that, that's the problem with like we're always after the instantaneous gratification side of the house, and so you don't follow up with Sphere because you just transacted with them. Tim, you've been in the business 3 years, right? And so it's like you're not even seeing the payoff, even though you are. But then just imagine 10, 11 years, from now. Like all of the 6 listings that I just did this month were basically like 5 of them were Sphere. It's just like and they just funnel in if the follow-up's there.
Yeah.
And I just
What you
met with
doing?
another agent. He's on the #1 Remax team in PA. And we talked to him at coffee this morning, and he's probably going to do 15 million this year in volume himself. And he goes, yeah, my biggest pain point is just keeping up with my database. I know I'm not doing a good enough job with it. I haven't talked to Aunt Betty in 16 years, type idea. And he was making a joke. But the reason why I wanted you to share it, Tim, is because you're on the Acree Brothers team who does, in all things considered, phenomenal in keeping up with Sphere, 4 client events a year. You guys have magazines going out. We have postcards, all this stuff. But even in that situation, you yourself still look and go, yeah, I'm not doing enough. I'm not calling them. I'm not texting them. And that is the separator for agents, is that willingness to call. And the golden nugget I want to give to people is like, okay, we tried to, say on Fridays, you're going to call for 2 hours. Didn't happen. And we made it so it's an achievable goal where it's like, okay, at least I can text them. And you actually did that. And I think where most agents fail is they set a goal, they don't hit it, and they don't rework it to make it achievable and actually get it done, even if it's not 100% of what it could be. It could be a call would be better. You know what would be even better? A cup of coffee would be even better. But that's not going to happen. And so you got to live in like practical, versus, goal. And this is where I think the Grant Cardone methodology falls down, is it's all about 10xing your goal. Yes, in a mindset potential and in an inspiration potential and to push yourself. But in the reality is the winners who win are the winners who actually do the work. So if you find yourself setting 10x goals, you don't hit those goals, then you basically just don't do anything. And that's what I see in most agents is they set these big goals, they don't hit them, and they don't do anything. Instead of adjusting and going, no, what can you actually commit to that you will do? Let's at least put that so you can be a person of integrity and do what you say. And from there, you'll build repetition, you'll build confidence, and you'll work yourself up to getting the goal that you want to get to. But most agents don't do the work that you do, which is going, yeah, I know I failed at making the calls, but at least I sent the text messages. And that became my new goal. And I'm going to work myself up to getting the calls. And I just see so many agents, they literally fail. And then they just, well, it is what it is. I'll try next week. And it's like, no, you've lost. You've wasted your time. You got to adjust your goal. So, all right. So talk a little bit about you as an agent, right? You have this, saying that you told me 6 figures in 6 months as an agent. And I just want to hear from you, and maybe you can share obviously with the audience of, if they wanted to make 6 figures in 6 months, what would you be telling them to do?
Yeah. So 6 figures in 6 months, it's just the idea of getting to like $9,000 a month in net profit for your business and as a brand new agent. So the best advice I can give you is join a team, like find the best team then join them, and then that'll get you there. But we basically, it's a way to generate enough leads to do it. So the first 3 months is all about generating leads. And then actually in the second half, the 3 months, you'll start closing deals. And usually by the 6th month, you should be generating, if you do everything that I did, you'll be generating about $16,000 to $20,000 in net profit in that 6th month. And it'll just be on auto, because you've developed the routine and habits that you need to generate the leads that'll get you that income. And if you're in a market with higher volume, you can probably do it faster or for more money.
What is the source of leads or activity that you did and then that you would encourage people to do?
Yeah. So as a new agent, I would start with open houses. I would work multiple open houses, figure out what I would work 2 or 3 a week until you figure out maybe 30 open houses in 30 days. I've had people do that. I did 2 a week. And I was also doing 4 hours of calls 5 days a week. My first 90 days.
Who were you calling? Were you circle prospecting or calling the lead pond from Acree Brothers, like Facebook leads and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's all Facebook leads and Google leads is what I called. Circle prospecting is something that you could do for sell-by owners is another good one. You basically want to go find the lowest hanging fruit you can those first 90 days and call. I did 275 doors that I knocked. So I was doing 20 doors a day for 8 weeks. I would do something like that again, but I would choose, you need 3 pillars. So the key is you need 3 pillars. You can't do 2 or 1, you need 3, and I wouldn't do more than 4. And that's because you need to be able to follow up with everybody. And you need to pick ones that you enjoy. So if you really like going out and knocking on doors, just do that. Do that one, make that one. And then you find 2 more. If you're knocking on doors, I would combine that with open houses, and I would do my door knocking around the place that I'm going to do my open house. And then if you're going to do calls, right? I mean, if you're going to door knock and do open houses, then your next thing should be circle prospecting. So then you can circle prospect the same places that you're door knocking, and those people will just see you all the time, and you'll pick up all of the early on, all the people who are ready to go. You'll get those people. What I did was open houses, online leads, and I worked my sphere. When I first started, Luke, I had a goal every week. For the first month, I was meeting like 2 or 3 times a week with people in my sphere for lunch or coffee. And that was to build this idea that I'm a top producing agent. I didn't transact with anybody that wasn't related to me in that first 6 months. It was all family. But because I was constantly meeting with people and talking to people, since then I've done millions of dollars in volume from the people and referrals from those people.
See, that's key for people to know. Like, I think Tim today his name's Tim too, at Coffee, he didn't transact for like the first 4 months and he thought everything wasn't working. I think Ricky Cruz says he didn't do a deal for like 8 months. You didn't really do a deal. I mean, you did a deal with some of your family, which is totally fair and good in the first 6 months. But other than that, you didn't. So it's like, hey, if you're a new agent listening to this, don't be shocked if it's 3 months, if it's 4 months. This is why they say if you can have 6 months of savings before you get into real estate. Not everybody can do that, but that's why they will encourage you in that way.
Yeah. Well, and if you work this plan 6 months, 6 figures in 6 months, you'll generate business between them. But it worked really well for us. And like I said, open houses, severe, and the online leads were my key. Those are my main sources. And then I tapped my 4th source that I tapped, which was really the game changer for me in 2024, was investors. I just tapped into the investor market, and that's about 25% of my business now. Builders
Amazing.
and flippers. Yep.
Yeah. For anyone who is hearing this and wondering, like, what do I do with that open house? Because Tim mentioned that was a big one. If you go to remindermedia.com/open house, we literally have Steven's strategy there available for you. So you can download that, get a couple open house kits, as well as download the ultimate playbook for that strategy that Tim's talking about.
And that's the exact playbook I used for all my open houses.
Sick. All right, last question for you, brother. What advice would you give Steven to be a better leader? Don't hold back, Tim. I can handle it.
I don't know that I would give Steven any advice. When I first came on, I sat in I don't even think I had been on the team long enough to really have done anything important. But the reason I liked Steven and Cody was because the same mindset. We want to win and win big. And I remember sitting with them and they were asking for my feedback. And I was like, we got to get the standards up on this team. Like we have to have more accountability. We have to push people harder. I just overheard a conversation where people were talking about their goals, and it was like to make $50,000 or $45,000, which is nothing wrong with that. But it's like, that doesn't wake me up in the morning, right? Like, I want to make $1 million, which I'm sure there's people out there like $1 million a year. Who cares about that? You need to be thinking bigger. But I had that conversation with Steve and Cody, and they acted on it. And that's been the thing that I would say just keep doing, is being open to those conversations. And then Steven's great about having a conversation about it. If he disagrees with me, we can have a conversation about it. It's never an argument, If you talk to Cody, it feels a little bit more like an argument. But with Steven, it's a conversation. Cody, if you're listening, I love you, man. Well, anyway, this
so
is
good.
just a side note on these two. Steven is like your dad, Luke, and you. I remember we played music together, and whenever Luke didn't like what I was doing, we would have a conversation, and I wouldn't realize it until I changed what I was doing, that he had wanted me to change what I was doing. So it's more manipulative, but it's much softer. You feel better about it. Where Cody's not manipulative at all. He just says, That's dumb. Why do you want to do
You're
that?
an idiot.
Yeah, don't do that. Tim, this doesn't make sense. Like, I got really upset about an offer. We got a low offer from someone else on the team, from a lead that was generated off of one of my listings to the team, and a low offer comes in. And I pulled Cody aside. I'm like, what is this? How am I supposed to work with this? He's like, how would you normally work with it, Tim? I was like, well, I would do this. He's like, all right, so why are you getting upset? Yeah, it was good.
I relate.
So
I relate to that coaching from Luke also. So you're not alone. I relate to that coaching from Luke. Where it's like, wait a minute, what just happened? What did he just do to me?
Great.
Tim, this has been fantastic. Thanks for coming on, sharing your update on your journey. Where can people follow you?
I mean, I'm mostly going to show up on the Acree Brothers Facebook and Instagram, but the Tim Bushnell on Instagram, I believe, and my Facebook is private. But if you find me and send me a friend request, just DM me and let me know that you saw me on Stay Paid, and we can connect.
Nice, love it. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you guys both so much, and thank you all for listening. To get all of the show notes, and we'll throw a link to that open house kit in the show notes as well. Go to staypaidpodcast.com. Make sure to follow the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed and you give this video a thumbs up over at youtube.com/Reminder Media. And keep an eye out. Luke teased it a little bit. Maybe the first time we've mentioned it on the podcast. We are having a book come out. Luke is writing a book with some partners, obviously focused all around teams interviewing. I think you said dozens. You might be up to the hundreds by the time this interview and research.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to interview well over 100 top teams across the country. So we shall see.
So we're going to be compiling, all of that information and coming out with a book later. So make sure you're following us on Instagram. So at Stay Paid Podcast for the podcast, at Luke Acree to follow Luke's feed. We will be putting out some more information about that shortly. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Tim, you are a rock star, man. Appreciate you coming on and sharing 2 action items for you. And really, the first action item applies to everybody, but specifically if you're a team leader or a leader, you need to know your standards. You probably need to raise them, but you got to hold to them. And so first action item is really going, do you know your standards? Are they at the level they should be? And are you holding to them? And then if you are not a leader, everybody's really a leader. So that applies to everybody. But the second action item for all the agents out there that are listening is, you heard it from Tim. You want to make 6 figures in 6 months. It really comes down to your 3 lead pillars. And are you prospecting those lead pillars? And Tim prospected 4 hours a day in his first 6 months. Tim, this other top producer, I know it's confusing because I talked to 2 Tims today, but this other top producer doing 15 million this year, maybe 20 million. He's prospecting from 9 to 11:30 every single day. And he's brand new in the business, just a couple years in. And so that is the common thing that most agents just severely underestimate, is how much activity you need to do. So I would sit down. The action item I would put for you is, are you prospecting at least 2 to 4 hours a day right now to fill your pipeline? Because if you do not have the volume that you want and the deals that you want, it's because you're not putting in the activity. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business. It's top producers take action. Take action on that today.